When I was living in Pennsylvania on my first call, I decided to get serious about my health. And rather than joining a gym or go to the free gym at my apartment complex, I came up with the brilliant idea of buying an at-home gym. And I knew exactly the kind I wanted. It was at the local Play It Again Sports. It had everything I wanted, including a boxing speed bag. Now, my apartment was not very big. It was about the size of this pulpit. And this gym would take up a lot of space. But I thought it was for a worthy cause, my health. I remember the day I bought it. I even bought my first pair of boxing gloves. And I told myself by the end of this week, I am going to be punching my way to better health. Now, can you tell me the number of times I worked out on that gym? You don't have to yell it because it may be hurtful what you say out loud. But let me give you a hint. If you answered once, you're going too high. I got to be honest with you, I never used it. It just sat in my living room collecting dust. And every day I told myself, okay, today is the day I'm going to get healthy. But by the end of the day, I found myself saying, I'll do it tomorrow. And then I watched one of my Lethal Weapon movies. I don't know, just something. At least it made for a very nice coat rack when I had it. But each day, I would look at this gym, and I felt like a failure. And I knew it was a waste of money. And I knew I had wasted an opportunity. How many of you have ever felt that way? Like you have wasted an opportunity. We look at the waste as a failure on our part. So what do we do when we are confronted by this waste? How do we move on? We can start by restoration. Now, the definition of restoration is two parts. The first is a reinstatement, and then a repairing to an improved condition, like the restoration of a painting. Now, both definitions are at work in our gospel, and both definitions can work for us. For the first definition, reinstatement, let's examine what's happening in the world around Jesus. The gospel follows directly after the remarkable events of John 11, where Jesus raises Lazarus in the city of Bethany. As chapter 11 concludes, Lazarus, Mary, Martha, and the onlookers are celebrating this miracle. However, Jesus' enemies, the chief priests and the Pharisees, have seen enough and are prepared to act against Jesus. Their initial step is to declare Jesus an outlaw officially. This means that if Jesus appears in public, he can and will be arrested. Our gospel is Jesus making that first public appearance after landing on the most wanted list. Jesus and his disciples return to Bethany, and they dine with Lazarus, Martha, and Mary because they are friendly faces who provide a safe place, a refuge to eat and stay. And this is where things get weird. Mary anoints Jesus' feet. In the ancient world, anointing would happen for three reasons. The first, kings and priests were anointed to show that they were God's chosen ones to lead the people. Think of the Old Testament stories of King Saul and King David. Another reason, sick people were anointed as a healing ritual. We do the same thing now when we do a laying on of hands. We have little oil that we make the sign of the cross on people who are sick or about to undergo a procedure. And the third reason is Mary's reason. The dead were anointed for burial. Now, what makes this weird is, well, to put it in the eloquent words of my preaching professor, Tom Ridenauer, he ain't dead yet. What also makes it weird is that Mary breaks a lot of social practices. First, she lets her hair down. Now, I know today, you'd probably be like, oh, wow, she let her hair down. But back in ancient Palestine, no respectable woman would ever appear in public with her hair unbound. A woman with unbound hair was associated with immorality. And then Mary touches Jesus. This was a social no-no because women were considered second class to men. This is not me talking. This is the rules back then. Trust me, this is not me. I'm just sharing with you the tradition. Women were considered second class to men, so they were not allowed the same privileges as men. And one of the privileges they lacked was the ability to approach, speak, and touch men in public. So first, Mary lets her hair down, and then she touches Jesus. And finally, she uses expensive perfume. According to Mark 14, the perfume price was 300 denarii. 300 denarii was a year's salary. Mary just spent an entire year's salary on Jesus' feet. The reaction people have is the same one that my wife has whenever those annoying Christmas season car commercials start showing up. You know, the ones where the husband takes the wife out to the driveway. She opens her eyes and sees a new $50,000 to $60,000 car, and she looks so happy. And not a year goes by that my wife does not threaten me with bodily harm if I ever think of doing that. Maybe you all have shared those kind of threats with one another. But seriously, what would you spend a full year's salary on? Would you spend it on your child's education? Maybe. A house? Maybe. Donation to the church? Okay, I tried. A new car? Yeah. But how many of you would spend it on perfume? This is why Judas calls this a waste of money. And since Mary is a woman, a second-class citizen, she is suitable for ridicule and rejection. And if there's anything we know about a bully, is that when they see an opening, they take it. And Judas has no problems playing the role of the bully. He tears Mary down while trying to sound all holy. The money should go to the poor. That's what I would have done. What a troll. But before anything else can be said, before anyone else can get their shots in, 3 words change everything. Leave her alone. Leave her alone. It's amazing what these 3 words can do to change a conversation and maybe for all of us, change our way of thinking. You see, these words are not a suggestion. These words are a commandment. Jesus tells Judas to back off. This also goes to others who might have ideas for making fun of Mary. Jesus stands up for Mary. He defends her. To me, what Jesus does by defending Mary the outcast and reprimanding Judas the student sends a powerful message to those who have been bullied or abused. Jesus does not tolerate bullies. A Christian does not bully anyone. But even more important than that, Jesus was not just defending Mary because of her place in society. Jesus was defending Mary because she was his friend. Mary, Martha, Lazarus, and Jesus, they had a history. They had a story. They had a relationship with one another. For those of you who have deep friendships, how many of you would stand by while someone else degraded your friend or bullied your friend? Your initial reaction would be to stand up for them. In Jesus' eyes, what Mary did was not a waste of money. It was a gift of love. It was a gift of devotion. Because Mary took her precious possession, her most precious possession, and spent it all on Jesus. Mary did not waste money. Mary set an example of servanthood. And Martha did too. I don't want us to forget about her. Martha is spending her time serving others, being a good host, making sure all are happy and fed. Mary and Martha are not being wasteful. They are both examples of worship. We can and should learn a lot from them. Just this morning, our church member Happy led the breakfast crew in a prayer, and he mentioned that our God was a serving God. And so when we welcome people to our church, be it in person or online, we want to be sincere. We want to make people feel comfortable. We want them to feel safe. We want them to feel peace. Now, if you want to talk about waste, let's talk about good old Judas. When you read the Gospel of John, Judas is not one of John's favorite people. We know from chapter 6 that Judas is a devil. That's what John calls him. But John chooses this point to reveal Judas as a thief. So in this story, you have clear opposites. On one side, you have Mary and Martha, and on the other, you have Judas. Mary and Martha demonstrate their faith through their actions. Judas speaks it, but his actions do the opposite. One side is generous and devoted, while the other is greedy, self-serving, and two-faced. What Judas is doing, what Judas is saying, is waste. He is squandering the grace that Jesus has bestowed on him. He wastes the opportunity, he wastes the opportunity to learn and change his ways based on what Jesus, his rabbi, his teacher, demonstrates. I believe Jesus is communicating this to Judas at the end of our passage when he says to him, Judas, you will not always have me. See, Jesus is right there in Bethany, the house, and in the flesh, and he will not be around much longer. Are the disciples taking advantage of this gift? Some are learning. Others, like Judas, are squandering this opportunity. Today, I want you to be more like Mary and more like Martha and much less like Judas. I urge you to take your opportunity with Jesus seriously. We are blessed to always have God with us. We are fortunate to have a God who has saved us. We are truly blessed to have a God who offers us opportunities to improve our lives. We have a God who wants to have the same kind of real relationship he shared with Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. Let's not waste what God has given us. Here's an example. Can you think of a relationship that you are currently in that has hit a snag, and now you find yourself playing the apology game? As in, I'm not going to apologize until they apologize to me first. And so you wait and you wait. Who's going to make the first move? But what happens if that other person, your so-called dear friend, dies suddenly? What will your first thought be? It probably isn't going to be good, glad they're gone. 99% of the time, it's going to be, I never got the chance to make up with them. I never got the chance to say that I'm sorry or to say that I forgive you. That is waste. Do not assume you have another day to make things right. Life is precious, and we are not guaranteed anything. Don't play games with your relationships. Be serious today and now. And while you have the chance, don't waste that chance for reconciliation. You just never know when that chance might end. Another example, and this is to parents and grandparents and guardians, do not waste your time with your children when it comes to teaching them about God. I've often seen people lament that children just aren't into Jesus, and they want to blame the church, they want to blame politics, they want to blame a political party or some music star or actor. They want to blame education like public schools because the Bible isn't read or taught. And so my questions are, well, where are your kids? Are they in church? Do they go to church regularly? Do you go to church regularly? And for the younger people, our younger generation, do you read the Bible at home? Do you read the Bible? Do you go to Bible studies? Do you talk about this? Have you gone to me or have you gone to other people who are devoted Christians to just ask questions? Because you can certainly do it here. We don't mind the tough questions because then we can talk about them together. But as families, do you read the Bible at home? Do you teach? And how often do you prioritize coming to church or being part of church settings? Or is it a if we have time situation? Here's what you do. Take 5 minutes of your day and dedicate that to prayer, Bible reading, or service. In 5 minutes, you can pray. You could send a prayer to a friend. You can use social media, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever you want. You can use it for a good purpose. In 10 minutes, you could read a psalm or a Bible passage. In 30 minutes, you could journal. In an hour, you could make a meal for a homeless neighbor. In 2 hours, you could help provide clothes to a needy family. My point is, let us not waste the opportunity that God has given us. Let us not waste time, because God did not waste his time when it came to us. God made us a priority. And if you need proof, look no further than the cross. Where on the cross, Jesus showed all of us just how important we were to him. Grace, luckily, is not a home gym that collects coats and dusts in our living rooms, in our hearts. Grace is meant to be used, to be experienced, and to be shared. And today, we are still God's priority. He has given us the sacraments of baptism, adoption, and communion, forgiveness. These are signs of his gracious loves and signs that we are and never will be a waste of time for him. Amen.